I must be 6 or a little older, and it was one of the rare times my mother was at home. I was 2 months old when my father was arrested. My mother tells me that at the time of his arrest, I was in his arms, deep asleep. I had topped my class in the final exams. When I took the result sheet, there was an empty box on it, titled Parents' Remarks. And in the absence of our father, it was mother who had raised me as a half-widow. I wanted to get it signed. I wanted to make her feel that she had nothing to be guilty of, that she had raised me and raised me well. I wanted to achieve everything in this world and show it to her and hug her and make her feel that I'm a good son. I held the result sheet to my chest and I ran all the way to our home. When I reached, I was breathless and I was dreaming. I was happy. But the sight of a police vehicle brought me back to the world that I was so used to. And I saw my own mother. And I saw her staring at me while her hands were cuffed. And they took her from me. I remember standing there, watching my mother leaving me. The sun was blazing, but all the light that it had in that moment could not penetrate through the darkness that surrounded me in that moment. I remember tearing the result sheet and shredding it to pieces. It did not mean anything to me anymore if I could not show it to my own mother. I started walking back home, and those few steps felt like a mile-long walk, and I did not even call that house my home anymore. It felt like an orphanage, where I would live without my mother and my father, waiting for them and waiting for them to return back to me. But this was not the first time that my mother was being arrested. 7 years before my birth, in the year 1992, my mother was detained for the first time. My brother, who was an infant at that time, was jailed alongside her, and thus he became South Asia's youngest political prisoner. He was isolated from his mother for over a year, and all he had with him in that cell was a stone. He used to bang the door of that cell with the stone all day. And when my mother asked the jail authorities to provide baby food for him, they told her that he was not even on the records. Years later, once at midnight, I was sleeping with my head in the helm of my mother. No fireworks, no chatter, just the sound of her heartbeat was putting me to sleep. But then peace and occupation can never survive together. It was raining that night, the same rain that would have felt so depressing without her felt so serene. But then they came to arrest her. My brother took my mother through the back door. I followed, holding tears at the brim of my eyes. I did not want to cry. I did not want to break her will. Their oppression could not, but my fragility, my vulnerability was her weakness. Muhammad got on his knees and she stepped on his shoulder to climb the wall. And there she was. She escaped. And I was happy that she was not home anymore, because I would rather not see her at all than see her in prison. This one Friday, I went to see my father. Every month I used to meet him once, for an hour through the bars of prison. We could not hug each other, and he could not hold my face. I asked him to show me his prison cell, but he could not show me. They did not allow him to. They took him away from his home, and then they did not even let me see the dungeon of heartache that they kept him in. My father used to give me his clothes that used to fit me. They were very outdated and not fashionable at all, but they were his clothes. He had touched them, he had worn them, and they bore his scent, so I used to hold them as dear to me as gold. On one of my birthdays, my father gifted me a perfume. He used to gift me books as well, and highlight the parts that he wanted me to think about, and that is how I used to talk to my father. Now when he gave me this perfume, for 18 years of my life, I could not use it. Every single time that I would open it, I would close it back fearing that it would finish. But on my 19th birthday, I used it. I want to believe that he would be home again with me before the perfume finishes. I may not have my parents beside me, but I have some comfort. A comfort that I may not be able to touch, but I can surely feel it. Their breathing. And as my mother lies down on the rugged floor of Tihar jail, as her back hurts, as she remembers me, remembers the little memories that we have of the baths she gave me, of the lunch boxes that she prepared for me, of the time that we got to spend together. I choose to hope. I choose to hope that someday she would sing me lullaby and put me to sleep again. But until then, she is out there fighting for our freedom, fighting to ensure that nobody can ruin that night for me and for all the kids of Kashmir.